Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Therapy by the Book. My name is William Haddad.
I'm Daniel Villanueva.
And this is the show where we take your favorite fictional characters and ask the question, what would it be like if they came to therapy? And today, our character client is, I think, the first time on this show, actually, that we're going to the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the referral.
Yeah, it really is, which is surprising because they have so many great characters.
I know.
Although I'm going to start an argument, man. With you,
we're not even 5 minutes in.
I came in hot today. I'm going to start swinging. So,
all right.
I think Marvel has done a better job with their movies, but I kind of feel like DC has a better roster. I don't know, man. I just and go ahead, tell me I'm wrong. It's okay.
It depends on what you mean by better. That's my response.
Okay.
I mean, are we talking like, if you want characters that, if you want characters that are complex, that are interesting, I mean, I think Marvel's got just as many of those as DC. But I think if you're talking about the nature of what they're dealing with, you're talking about their motives or their personalities, or their superpowers and abilities. I mean, I'm not a comic book reader. I'll just get that out of the way right now. I'm just going purely on the movies. But the DC universe it definitely feels to me larger scale in terms of sometimes what is at stake and what the characters are capable of. And I'm trying to think of how to put this. The depth to which DC characters' psyches can extend is definitely at a larger than life level. Whereas Marvel, you've got plenty of interesting issues in mental health and emotions, but it's rare for them to seem, I guess, what you would call beyond human, if that makes sense.
Maybe that's what it is, man. Maybe that's why I see it in that way. Maybe that's why I connect, because when I think of DC or when I think of Marvel, I think of, the go-tos, right? Which is the Hulks and the Iron Mans and the Captain America and Black Widow and everybody else that Hawkeye, everybody that I love. Wakanda forever. I'm in it. I love it. But when I think of DC, it's just so many different perspectives and depths. I'm stealing your word depths because I think that's might be the key to it. I think they're a little bit more dynamic, and and they have all the sub things like the preacher, whatever his name is, and Constantine, and Lucifer. That the TV show was kind of based on, and all these characters that aren't I don't know, the spandex wearing superheroes, but they're heroes in their own right, and through their own trauma, through their own darkness, and maybe that's why I like it. I don't know if you've noticed, but I kind of root for the bad guy for some reason.
You don't say.
I don't know why. Maybe because I understand that it's not usually. I'm gonna really lead with that. Usually, their fault. It comes from something else. It comes from trauma. It comes from their backstory, and that's why I love the in-depth backstories. I think that's why we both dig around to try to find as much as we can, right?
I'll say this for you: whatever you want to say about the heroes, the villains of the DC universe are collectively way more colorful, complex, and expansive as a roster than the villains of the Marvel universe.
Okay.
That I will grant you. Okay. I think, especially with Batman. Batman, the list of Batman villains that are interesting. Have just so many layers of backstory. And psychology to them. I mean, that alone can stand against, at least in terms of the Marvel Cinematic Universe villains. Maybe the comic villains are a little more fleshed out, but there's not a whole lot of. I feel like I could count off on one hand the number of MCU villains who really resonate with me as well written, interesting, three-dimensional characters. Whereas, just about every Batman villain, even in the in the movie versions, even the corny ones had a little bit of subtlety to them, right. I think. And that's just one of the franchises in DC.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's it, man. I think it's the full spectrum of color is what I'm really looking at, which is a weird way to explain that, but it made sense in my head. There's just so many different layers, and I think I like that. And if somebody's going to type in that they hate me and they're mad at me, I didn't mean it. Marvel's the best. I love them. So be nice.
Well, listeners, you're probably wondering at this point, why the heck are we doing the MCU if we're such diehard DC love boys? But I promise you, we do have an interesting character client for today, and there's some layers to this guy.
Oh,
absolutely,
my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So who are we doing? We're going to be talking about Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes. The what did they call him? What did Quinn call him? The Trash Bandit. Which is horrible. Horrible. But what a horribly brutal life this guy has led. This alien, let's just call him this guy for the lack of better words. Doing the research on him, or I'm sorry, meeting with him has been so insightful. And again, now I got to question my own statements that I just made 5 minutes ago, which I end up doing as I process everything. There's a lot of layers. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of emotion, repression, everything. What did you think about his this laboratory experiment that we're going to be talking about?
Layers is the word. Yeah, layers is the word. I knew a little bit about him already because I'd seen the first two Guardians of the Galaxies, and then I actually watched Volume 3 in preparation for this episode. So I already had a good sense of what he's coming from, because even in Volume 1, they drop a lot of hints as to what he's probably been through.
Oh, for sure.
People listening, you get that from him. But oh my God, Volume 3, that when you finally get the full extent of his backstory and everything that happened to him, it really, really hits home. And I want to also make sure we're clarifying for listeners. So we're going to be talking about Rocket solely as his backstory is in the movies, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is different from the comics, I gather. Haven't read them, so I don't know the full extent, but I guess the biggest difference I can point out between the two is that I think in the comics, he's not a raccoon, despite looking like one, despite everybody, sometimes jokingly calling him that. That's not who he is. He's a species from a planet that just is raccoon-like, that then gets subjected to all the awful stuff that makes him who he is. But in the movies, I think that's, the twist at the end of Volume 3 is that it's revealed that he was a raccoon a long time ago. Once upon a time, he and a bunch of other infant raccoons were abducted by this alien overlord mad scientist, and everything happened from there. So we'll circle back to that revelation eventually. But I was surprised when that finally was revealed.
Yeah.
At the end of Volume 3.
Yeah,
it's crazy stuff.
I didn't know that. I didn't even know that. Which, man, now we're really going to make people mad this episode. You usually have all the in-depth stuff because we're going. We have gone, right up your alley. Stuff that very, very well. This is the first time that we're both going very surface area as far as our knowledge.
We are, yeah. Sorry, Star Wars month is over now. I'm in the dark.
Yeah, it's completely in the dark. Yeah. But with that said, having seen the movies, the three several times, and his guest appearances and other things and little bits and pieces, I think I have a pretty good understanding as to who he is and his level of struggles, his vulnerability, really, and his need for control and belonging that he's yearning for, has been yearning for. So my, I don't know, overall conception, just to start with, is he's really independent. He's like hyper intelligent, really guarded. Really tries to protect himself from judgment or outside manipulation. He has a tendency towards violence, which you can see that over and over.
Very
again.
Big tendency.
And he lashes out whenever he's vulnerable. And like I said a couple minutes ago, all he's looking for is acceptance and some sense of control, because he was a slave in some way, or an experiment, really, and belonging, because I guess we can go there right away. He almost felt like he belonged, and then they were all taken from him. Everybody was mutilated in their own way. What did you see?
I saw all of that, what you said, and also a deep survivor's guilt.
There you go.
I think you don't see this until volume 3, but I think he blamed himself deep down for the deaths of his friends.
I could see that. Yeah, because
they were all killed during his ultimately successful but very, very difficult escape attempt. And the goal was to break them all out. They were all supposed to get out on the ship together. But instead what happened was when he managed to get their cages in the facility unlocked, they got confronted by the blanking on the villain's name, which should tell you how much of an impression he made on me. This is what I'm talking about with MCU versus DC villains. But when he reappeared and he wanted Rocket alive because he wanted to study his brain, but he doesn't hesitate to shoot the other experiment animal friends that Rocket had become very close with at that point.
He killed his family. I mean, basically, this was another chance. Remember that in volume 3, and I guess we're going to be there a lot for a while, anyways. In volume 3, you saw him as this child. He was tiny. He was scared. He was trying to figure out where he was, what the heck was going on, and really where he sits or where he stands. I don't know, in the pecking order. And they took him under their wing, and he felt like he was part of something. He also trusted the villain. I don't even remember his dang name. And it backfired on him. And it was those moments that really solidified him never wanting to be vulnerable again. Him wanting to always be in a position of power and control. And I think that also the way he was mistreated, the psychological abuse, really spurred his sarcasm. Because, man, he is the greatest. His sarcasm is amazing.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of. I was going to say to that note, he reminds me a lot of some police officers that I've met and worked with when I was doing the. Did I tell you about this? I used to do a program called DART, Domestic Abuse Response Team.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this is one of the very first roles as a mental health.
You did tell me that. You did. Yeah, I remember now.
This was in conjunction with a nonprofit that I would later do my internship with. And what they did was they had a program where you worked alongside the LAPD as a civilian mental health counselor doing rollouts, to domestic disturbance calls and stuff. And one thing that you notice very quickly about a lot of police officers is that, sarcasm and humor and basically anything goes jokes are par for the course in 90% of all conversation on the job, because it's how they cope. It's how they help to stay sane when confronted with all this really dangerous, terrible stuff that is their job most days. So Rocket, in many respects, is doing something similar, adopting the sarcastic, callous, I DGAF to just about everything aside from me and Groot, in the galaxy.
And what about this idea that he never really had? Oh no, I'm going to tell myself that I'm lying. I was going to say he never really had attachments. So he was almost like Stitch, but of Lilo and Stitch. But he did. He created attachments.
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
said earlier it was his family. He had attachments in that family, that they were all survivors and victims of the experimentation, but they found attachment through that trauma,
Yes.
shared
Yes.
trauma.
Shared trauma for sure. And I mean early relational traumas, because it started when he was really little, and then the physical, the psychological alterations, nothing within his consent, but it changed his approach to the world, which could have been fostered in a way to where he could have um, really made huge change. He could have been an incredible asset, but he was used to create a product, almost like the animal research that we still do, unfortunately, and it was going to be used to enhance the villain, um, and so with that disconnection, with just being a piece of property. He never really understood, or no, he never let himself understand pain. He would just sit in suffering, right? And his pain, even if it was physical pain, he was just so used to it. At one point, he said, "I didn't ask to be made." And I forget. I
Yes,
feel like that was in the first one or the second one.
that is
I
in the
can't
first
remember.
one. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that's in the first one, because I
Yeah.
watched that one
Yeah.
again too.
Yeah, he was yelling. He was fighting with somebody. He was arguing with somebody, and he
It's
said, "I didn't
Drax,
ask
I
you."
think, when they're both kind
That's
of
right. When
drunk.
they're drunk, when
And
they're
that's when
gambling.
you hear Rocket unfiltered for the first time, and you get a little of his more vulnerable side.
Oh, I love that scene when Groot's so shocked when he says, "Oh, poor you. Your kids got killed. Your wife got killed," and Groot says, "Oh man, that cracked me up the first time I saw it." But it just goes to show that he also lacks a little bit of a filter, and I'm gonna say rightfully so, because he never learned it. He never had to.
And he also keeps such an unfailing wall up most of the time, that on the rare occasions where it does come down, whether from alcohol or anything,
Right,
what have you,
or stealing.
or
Stealing.
stealing.
He's happy when he's stealing. Remember when they go take the batteries? I mean, he's
Oh,
like,
he loves it.
dude,
Yeah, he's no. Remember, he asks
oh
Peter.
my
He
god,
asks
to steal
Star-Lord
the
to
leg
steal a leg just
and
for the heck of it, just because he
yeah,
wonders what the guy is going to look like without the leg. He doesn't need it. He just
and a thumb
for
later,
the heck
yeah.
of it.
Or no, he was just brought a thumb, and he's wondering where the heck he got Groot got it from.
Oh, that's
But
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
So
yeah, just
it's just like, yeah, he just wants to know what it's like stealing for the fun of it. And I think that's all connected.
I think I know it is, and it's not even for the fun of it. It's to see the reactions. He wants to see what happens. He wants to see the outcome. He wants to see how his actions uh, are meaningful. They mean something, whether they're negative or not. It doesn't matter to him. It's I asked for that. I did that. I whatever it might be, and the outcome is it came from me. It came from my power, my source, my ability to control a situation, control a narrative, whatever it might be. Yeah, he is a very hurt soul, but when he is on it, when he is ready, when he is present, man, on Groot's shoulders, shooting a machine gun, blowing things up, stealing things, then we get just a hint of his joy, of where he really is, and how kind of relatable he can be, which is a weird way to see that.
Rocket understands, I think, despite being so guarded, he understands better than any of the other Guardians of the Galaxy what loss is like, what it means to lose everything, and he's been through it more. By the end of the third movie, he's been through it more times than anyone else. He's had a lot of practice with finding new ways to create meaning and joy in a life that's otherwise nothing but pain.
I'm going to disagree with you slightly. I think Gamora also, because Thanos killed her whole family, well, killed half her planet, really, and then took her in and really created the beast of a warrior that she is. And then Gamora's sister, which I forget her name,
Nebula.
Nebula went through everything as well, just like Rocket, where she had basically became almost all robot at some point because of so much trauma, man.
Remember, though, Nebula herself actually says when she finally witnesses through the memory banks all the torture Rocket went through, she actually says, "This is even worse than what Thanos did to me."
Yeah, you're right.
So
you're right.
I agree with you, but I think it's yes, and Rocket still understands it at a level slightly above the rest of them, simply because it's happened to him. Not worse exactly, so much as just he's lost his family more times than the rest of them have.
For sure. And
he lost
his identity.
Yeah, he's had to reinvent his identity probably the most number of times out of anybody in the group.
Absolutely. And we were talking about attachments earlier, and that was the one thing that every time he feels vulnerable at all, he pushes people away. Anytime he feels insecure, whatever it might be, he isolates himself, or he starts going off and saying crazy stuff. But then there's the other side of it that you see when he's in his relationship as a I'm just gonna say as a young boy. He does create those attachments, but it becomes so disorganized that he teeter-totters between wanting to defend the people he actually cares about when there's danger, and really fiercely being loyal and doing those things, and then instantly switching back to protective mode and going and I mean, he'll steal from you right in front of you. He doesn't care. So his dynamic is insane to me.
Do you think it's almost like he's just constantly fighting with himself?
Yes.
In the sense that he's fighting between trying to push everybody away to protect himself, but keep them all there because he misses and wants that attachment.
Yeah. And I think it's exactly what you said earlier. I think it has a lot to do with survivor's guilt. I feel like if I get close to these people and they die, I won't be able to get through it. I think that has such a big impact on his behavior, more than he obviously even considers. But that changes the way he interacts and the dynamic of his relationships. And then the Guardians come in, man, and they slowly, without trying. See, that's the biggest part for me, is they didn't try. They were just being themselves. And what we always talk about is that when you be your authentic self, you give other people permission to do the same thing. And so, as there being other dysfunctional selves, and I'm going to give it to Groot and Drax and I guess Gamora, and maybe not Nebula, but she comes around. But they are themselves no matter what, especially Drax. I love Drax.
Oh yeah, he's such a great character.
Oh, he's amazing. And so that gives him permission to let his guard down just a little bit. And with doing that, just like we've seen when we work with people, all we need is those moments. All we need is the drops of water that eventually fill the bucket. And then once we have the full bucket, and then it starts to overflow, and then we have to help them hold that, because now they're not used to that. It's overpowering. It's too much. And he's going through this process, and you can see it throughout the movies, and the overflow. But he handles it in a pretty interesting way. He handles it by simmering down, by stopping some of the dysfunctional behaviors, by kind of not avoiding what he's feeling or whatever it is, but not overtly exploring it or talking about it or even connecting with it. It just is. I've seen that before, which is the craziest part. And we can't challenge that, right? We gotta appreciate it. We have to help build on that. We have to help build this vulnerability that's coming out of nowhere and not really showing, but we know exists. And it's such a tricky tightrope walk. Does that make sense?
A little, yeah. I wanted to ask you, because this is connected, I think, because it's an example of Rocket's behavior changing over time. What do you think about his relationship with Groot specifically?
I feel like Groot, to me, anyways, it feels like either a child or a younger sibling.
Right. After Volume 1, when Groot, dies and is reborn as baby Groot and is baby and child Groot for really the next 3 appearances he has. He's child Groot in Volume 2, and then he's teenage Groot in Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. So for that
Guardians Christmas special too.
Oh yeah,
Groot.
I still need to see that, actually. Should really watch that. But for that whole interim period, Rocket really is more of a caretaker for Groot than a partner. And you notice his behavior shifts because of that. I'm wondering if maybe that could be tied to what you were saying earlier about, it was maybe on some level having to care for Groot and set an example, hopefully a mostly healthy, productive one that, actually gave him enough of a push to dial back some of his more erratic behaviors that he was prone to doing with impunity prior.
I could see that. I think it's one of those yes and answers, right? I think that it had built up to that point, and then that was what was a catalyst for him to become a little bit more nurturing. But even in the beginning of the first movie, you can see how he was already treating him like a little brother or a kid or something, stopping him from drinking out of the water fountain, scolding him. Just these little subtleties that you would do with like a little brother or a kid or a younger friend or whatever it might be. He is protective of him because he found family again. And this is what I was saying earlier that maybe didn't come through clearly, is that he is subtly and how can I make it a little more so the listeners will kind of get where I'm going. That sometimes people that grow up in, let's say, a very machismo household or somewhere where they can't show emotion, they always have to be stoic, they can't cry, they can't be soft, they can't do anything. They'll show this softness, this kindness through certain acts. Hey, don't drink water out of this drinking fountain, it's disgusting, cut it out. That's showing you care in the subtlest of ways, but it still shows you care because that isn't acceptable. And he has he has grown up to know that that is not acceptable because it's going to get me killed or hurt or get somebody else hurt if I'm vulnerable, and never will be vulnerable again. So little by little, it was already happening. And then when Groot died, and then when he finally sacrificed himself in a way and held Quill's hand, and they all took the brunt of the stone, that was a defining moment for him to step into his role as who he truly is. Did it shift completely? No, because it's not going to. And at the end of this, when we start going into treatment planning, we'll see that's not really where we want him to go anyway. But according to what you were saying, that's what's happening, man. Those are the subtleties, and those are how they wrote it to where you see the evolution little by little. But you, as a watcher, as a general watcher, all you're seeing is nothingness. But as somebody, like us, we're seeing those as big moments, man. Those are huge. Those are incredible feats of vulnerability for somebody that is not wired to do that.
His whole character arc across all 3 volumes is really moving, actually, when you put it in that light, because he goes from being a loner without anybody, who lost his family, the only family he ever was given and knew, to being the new leader of the Guardians, who,
right,
who's actually sad. He's sad. He's the one who first speaks up when Star-Lord says he's going to be taking time off, and the group's breaking up. Rocket's actually the one to say, wait, that's it. There's no more
what
Guardians.
Like, yeah,
what gives? But then he becomes the new leader. He's the new captain, and heads the next generation that's going to continue the work. So he goes from being somebody who lost everybody, had nobody, wanted nobody, or thought he wanted nobody, to being the everybody, to being the guardian, the leader, the full caretaker and family figure, the head of the household.
The head of the household. Yeah. He steps into his role, the role he should have always had. Not that he should have been the leader of everybody, but that he could be a leader. Because he's just brilliant, man. Okay, what about the emotional regulation issues, man? Because that plays the part from the beginning to the end till death do us part. That's not going nowhere.
No. Oh. I want to know what you think about this, actually. I think that I think we were sort of touched on this earlier. I think one of the ways that he learned to find a modicum of, it sounds a little hypocritical to say equilibrium, but I think that for him, this was his equilibrium. Was he found some form of calm, and control too, obviously, but because joy, like you were saying earlier, was such a visible factor of it, I think he found peace and balance of emotional regulation in his love of guns and firearms and explosives.
I think it gave him power.
I think it gave him power and also comfort. Honestly.
I could see that, but comfort, why?
It's a good question. I want to think about that.
Okay, think about it, because I think, and I see I see the smoke coming out of yours, because you're going through both, or I could think of 3 different avenues. But let me sit on this one. Is that now you're not going to hurt me again. Now I'll never be vulnerable again. Now I learned something, and I used it against my first enemy, the first guy, to be able to enact some sort of self-defense. And he just beat that guy senseless. But he used his knowledge of weaponry and I forgot what it's called, to make bombs and stuff like that, explosives, to try to escape. And he continues to refine and get better and better and better and better and better. So to me, the weapons and everything else, yes, exactly what you said. But for me, the overarching part of it is, now I don't have to be scared. And we see it at the end, where it's not, now it's a tool. He doesn't use it to protect himself anymore. He doesn't use it as a self-defense. It's still self-defense.
It's still self-defense. But maybe it's less about the control at the end,
yes,
and more about
the emotional
and more about this is for helping protect other people, as a guardian of the galaxy.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it began. So I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. I think it began with power and control. I mean, no question. It began as survival, and then from there progressed into power and control. But I think he found too that the power, because having this particular form of power and control, it offered him actually a form of stability and safety. I think for him, there was safety in being able to say, I'm this tiny guy who's been through all this, but I know how to use all these ginormous bazillion guns that just fire and bang and, go boom, boom. And I am a master of them.
That's can make them awesome. Out of scraps.
I can make him out of scraps. Yeah, he's the Iron Man of the Guardians of the Galaxy. He's, you know, every bit as much of a weapons junkie as Tony Stark is. And I think he actually found a genuine joy. He took like legitimate pleasure in being able to just feel so comfortable and savvy around his weapons. I mean, it's sort of like what you see with some gun enthusiasts. It's,
yeah,
you know,
I can see that.
There's plenty of, you know, there's plenty you can read into about power and control with owning a lot of firearms. But then there's also some people who really just find a unique form of serenity or of joy being able to, you know, take care of their guns, the polish, the ritual, the ritual of cleaning, of disassembling, of putting together. I mean, that right there is what we've talked about before with a lot of hands-on coping techniques. You know, you're doing something with your hands. I think we were talking about that last episode with Forrest Gump, actually.
Yeah, there's some similarities of it. I was hoping you would say that, because I picked up on that as well, man. He has some like his sensory processing is different, right? His like executive functioning's a little bit off. He's weird about certain noises, sensitive to touch, very and well, other than Forrest, this is his own thing, questions every authority. But the similarities of that, of the touch, of the noises, of everything, there's some similarities there. And I you know, it's the chicken before the egg, right? Or the chicken or the egg. With Forrest, I think you know, it was, he was just born that way. I think with Rocket, it grew out of the trauma, his life. But I'm glad you noticed that, because yeah, that's an interesting trait that it's subtle, but it's there, and which tells me that there's still an injured. Again, I'm going to keep referencing him, this little boy in there, that's trying to figure out this world. And then you know, our Tim Gunn, no, not Tim Gunn,
James Gunn.
James Gunn. Tim Gunn's the clothes guy, right? The suits, he does suits or something.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Need to see that show.
Some guy. Yeah, James. That was his genius of creating this ending where we see him flourish. We see the evolution of it. Hopefully, he does a good job on Superman. Just
Fingers
a little
crossed.
thing. Oh man, the trailers look great. Okay, yeah. And then what about his like engineering focus? What do you think that's all about?
Similar, you know, to the love of guns. I think it began as out of survival necessity. Although it's a little more nuanced here, because it was something that he was forced to do as part of the experiments, you know, that his creator had him doing. He was being told to do these complex calculations and to make deep mathematical, scientific, analytical assessments about the nature of the technology that they were all working with. So the question of, you know, why does he do it? What does he get out of it? Has it's a little more complicated, because unlike the hands-on stuff where it was just him at first learning to piece things together. I mean, the OG of that is him putting together that key that he ends up using to break himself out of the cages from scrap metal. His mechanical expertise and his understanding of, you know, stuff that both of our brains combined probably couldn't grasp, in terms of physics, in terms of propulsion and aviation and cyber technology and all that. It would have given him, I think, a similar form of control and maybe to some extent some zen, if he was able to get into the zone at times with his own experimentation and exploration.
That's what I thought.
But I don't think it would have given him. I don't think it would have ever given him the joy, the ecstasy that he eventually cultivated in being able to just fire really big guns at people that would never bother him again afterwards.
Yeah. I think I agree. I totally agree. Actually, I also think that there was something to that the engineering focus to be able to disconnect, because he didn't really understand social cues all that well. He started picking up on them, He got him better than Forrest. But he, with this, he felt completely in control. He felt completely uh, adapted, connected. He just felt good. It made him feel good. So it was a source of happy drugs, dopamine, and everything else that goes into our heads. At the same time, it was an escape from the world around them. It was a sense of control to be able to blow somebody up if they piss them off, and it was also a means to an end to get out of things, and it was, I think, evolved into a joy of it, a respect for I think on the first one, he makes the gun of all guns when they try to blow up Ronin.
Yes.
But it doesn't work. But yeah, so that's what I took out of that. He does take things a lot very literally, and he misunderstands other people's intentions, and so these places or these placeholders where he can feel safe and understand the world around him is where he thrives. And that's with the building of the guns. That's with anything with having to do with electronics. That's when with plotting or planning, because he's actually a very incredible strategist. And eventually, with being a leader and controlling situations, which I guess intrinsically connects to being a strategist. But again, we see the character evolve and evolve and evolve.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I had something I was going to add to that, and then my brain just
okay.
completely said, "I'm sorry. You wanted to make your point? Nope, not happening.
Not today. Try again tomorrow.
Not today. Try again tomorrow. Go back. I need Rocket to perform maintenance on my short-term memory recall. Get a cybernetic implant of my own."
I think about that stuff. I wish the Matrix was real. I just plug in all the time.
Man,
I download all kinds of stuff.
Can you imagine Rocket getting his paws on the technology of the Matrix movies? What he would do with the virtual simulation?
Mind blowing. Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Probably literally. Oh well, okay. I do remember now what I was going to say. I wanted to ask you about whether you think he prior to like his full character arc, what role compassion played in his life, if he was capable of it with other people, even if he wasn't at all going to be showing it at that point. Because I feel like I noticed it with Groot, like we were talking about earlier, with his gestures of caring and of caring through saying don't do this, don't do that. Yeah.
I think it's always been there, man. I think if we look at it from 3 to 1 and then Christmas special and his guest appearances and stuff, you can see that it's always been there. He was a sweet kid. He was a sweet, innocent kid trying to figure it all out. He really was. And so he did have all the emotional connection that he could have. And then he got dismantled. And then everybody was lost and everybody died. And then he lived, on whatever points, or I forgot what they're called, that he could, doing bounty hunting, and then he just scraped and scrapped and tried everything he could to survive while keeping his circle extra tight, keeping his emotional expenditures to zero, not making any connections other than with Groot, who again I think he looked at like a kid or a little brother, and living a life of isolation. Because you remember he didn't feel, or in my opinion anyways, he never really felt like he belonged, man. He wasn't fully an animal. He wasn't obviously fully human. He wasn't fully a machine. He was a little bit of everything, but never felt like he was from anywhere. And he wasn't even from nowhere. Oh, sorry, good. Dad joke. That was a bad one.
Are you kidding me? That's hilarious. I'm saving that. Well, he even admits as much in part 1, volume 1, when he says, "Ain't nobody like me but me." That's it's him essentially, stating that shorthand.
He calls himself trash too.
And he vehemently denies that he's a raccoon, but he knows obviously he's not human, but he's not a machine either, So it's like I'm me, and that's all you're getting,
Remember, he asks after though. He's like, "Wait, what's a raccoon?" He has no idea.
Oh yeah,
so yeah. No,
and then he's all offended when Thor calls him a rabbit in
Infinity
War.
The God Man. Yeah, the God Man. Yeah, he vermin. He's a rodent. I don't remember. Little monster, some little monster. I mean, there's all kinds of names that again other him because he's already feeling othered. He's already not connected to anything in particular. So he's so detached from anything that he doesn't want to let himself be because he doesn't know what that even looks like or who am I? Let's just say, and if I'm going to talk for him. So his identity, man, his identity is just a product of like abuse, captivity, and dehumanization. I know he's not a human, but you know what I mean.
With all this detachment, something I'm wondering, which the movies never share, but I'm sure the comics probably go into it at some point. So, deep dive Marvel nerds, if you're listening, please, send us a full essay on how this happened. Yeah, I'm curious how he and Groot met and what caused them to first team up.
I didn't even want to bring it up. I thought the same thing. I've been thinking that for years at this point, and I still don't sit down and Google it.
Well, you can't overlook it. I know. I wish I'd Google it now, but I don't know if it would have been canon just because it's not talked about in the movies. But the for us, I mean, but
yeah,
you can't overlook it because Groot is the first being that Rocket forms an attachment with after that we know of anyway, after escaping that horrible laboratory. But what is it about Groot? That's my question. Why Groot? Why him?
Groot is, man, I keep referencing Forrest. I just love Forrest. Groot is Forrest in the sense of not completely, guys. That's not what I mean. But he's Forrest in the sense of he's
not literally,
not literally, but he's non-judgmental. And if he loves you, he loves you. And he will protect you. He will be there for you, and in his own subtle way, he'll let you know that certain things are like the gasp when he was talking about what's his name's family getting killed. Those little subtleties, Drax. Those little subtleties are that's information, that's data that Rocket needs, but in a non-judgmental, harsh approach. So it resonates with him. He can take it in, pretend like he didn't even hear it, but he heard it, man. He feels it because that little boy is still in him. That little boy that loved his neighbor in the next jail or next cell, that wanted to all of them to escape and go and live on a planet somewhere and fly and be happy and that pipe dream, that little kid's still there.
Here's my dad joke. I apologize for this. He's not Groot. He's not a forest. He's a tree.
Yes. That's funny.
Well, you are bang on with that, man. I couldn't agree more. He's very much like Forrest Gump, at least in terms of his who he is to Rocket, in that he's non-judgmental, and it's kind of funny because Drax, of course, is supposed to be the character who takes everything literally at face value. He's incapable of understanding metaphor,
but nothing goes
or
over
analogy.
his head.
But nothing goes over his head.
His reflexes are way too fast for that.
Yeah. But in many respects, Groot has a part of that too. He has opinions. Groot has pretty strong opinions and makes remarks, but it's never it's never in a way that judges Rocket beyond how he's presenting in the moment.
And that's what I those are the subtleties that I picked up on when we get to the part of treatment, man, because you can't make him feel challenged, and that's what Groot doesn't do. It's all kindness, it's all empathy, it's all showing how it's making him feel, so that he can showcase to Rocket of, hey, dude, you're kind of screwing up. Like, that was mean. How, he lost his whole family. What are you doing? You know, it was basically what he said with the gas. But okay,
Groot is the check on Rocket's temper, the only one in the first movie. Which is it's just significant.
So is Rocket to Lieutenant Dan as Groot is to Forrest?
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad analogy,
right?
I would accept that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, since at this point we've talked about Forrest so many times, but I guess we're just coming out of Forrest, so
we are, coming out of Forrest and into Groot.
So, what are you thinking on diagnosis?
Complex PTSD.
Oh, for sure.
You know, for the, I mean, you know, again,
400th time.
If you've been listening to our episodes, this was, you'll know at this point to expect it at least every couple of episodes.
Hey, that's the way they write them. It's not our fault. I mean, those are the best characters to write. You need the deep trauma. You need the unresolved attached, or you know, this disorganized attachments, and the unresolved grief and pain and everything else to create a well-rounded character.
Right. And I want to pull back just for a second from the therapy angle and actually just talk about this in terms of narrative and storytelling. Although trauma of any sort is horrific and always terrible to experience and never deserved, one of the reasons why characters with traumatic backgrounds in stories work so well and are so interesting is because if their character arc involves coming full circle, healing and growing and empowering in the ways that we've already talked about Rocket is able to, it can create some of the most beautiful storytelling out there to witness what in the clinical world we would call post-traumatic growth or healing. To see that, to actually be able to follow a character on that path from all the terrible darkness through the surviving into the realization, into the processing, into the reconciliation, into the healing, into the empowerment. There's few other storytelling narratives. There's few other formulas for storytelling and character writing that are as compelling or as emotionally resonant. Because the story of the trauma survivor is so universally relatable, because we all know what that's like if we've been through trauma too.
And the audience can connect with the hero, victim, whatever order it's in, whenever in the journey we find them. And that's ultimately what we want. And that's what happens with us on the clinical side too, is that we connect, and we want to make a connection because sometimes we're the only or the first connection they've ever really had. The only time they could ever really be themselves and let go. And as you created that step-by-step growth, you could see it throughout the movies, and you see how it ends at the end, man. It's exactly like you said.
Exactly. It's one of the reasons too why in modalities like trauma-focused CBT, we have the concept of the trauma narrative, which is helping a survivor to create a story based around their experience. The whole point is not just to go back and wallow in all those feelings. It's to add new chapters to that narrative you hadn't thought about before, that promote healing and empowerment in all the same kinds of ways that make us smile when we see Rocket doing it.
Yep. Change the meaning of everything, because from every storm that creates a rainbow, man. There is something to it, and I know that sounds very simplified. I don't know. Simplified. That's the word I was looking for. But the reality is that we are where we are right now even if the trauma has happened or continues to happen. But what we learn from it and how we use it as a tool for growth to get to a better place, that's going to change everything. You're going to take your power back. You're going to take your control back, versus sitting in suffering. You continue to let the trauma or the traumatizer or traumatizers control you. He took his power back. He found his identity, his true authentic self, and he ran with it. And it was beautiful. And that's so. Yeah, I completely agree. Complex PTSD he has hypervigilance. He uses sarcasm as a shield, and that's not really trauma based, but I just saw it. He does have emotional depth, but he doesn't let himself touch it or see it. He doesn't like to go back to those times. Mistrust of authority. Always argue with that. I love the fact. What if I like something more than somebody else and I take it from him? And he's like, wait, you didn't hear me. I said I liked it more, and the guy's like, dude, that's still bad.
Still bad. Can't do that. Yeah. And avoidance. His running from his own identity as a raccoon is probably the most avoidance at its purest form.
Yep, I totally agree. Any secondaries or anything else?
I would say, to some extent, the warped, the tunnel vision that we see, viewing the whole world in a certain light. I think we don't see it to quite the same extent as you can see it with some trauma survivors, but just his generally, I guess, his sarcastic outlook on, like, unless he knows you, his average impression or judgment is going to be a dismissive negative, or a playful taunt of some kind. Definitely viewing the world as or the galaxy, I should say, as being primarily a dangerous place where you can't really trust anybody. I think that's that's
I could see that.
Yeah.
I thought similar. I thought trauma based or trauma inspired, evoked. I don't know, ADHD. Also trauma inspired, evoked autism traits. I don't even know if that's an actual diagnosis. I don't think it is, but I think it. And I was touching on it earlier when I was talking about his issue with textile. His issue with noises and just those subtleties. His inability to understand um, normal interactions with other people. That's what I saw. The neurodivergent, trauma influence traits. Disorganized attachment for sure.
Oh yeah, hands down.
And when you lose
survivor's guilt.
Survivor's guilt. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are the key points. And it, definitely, full criteria for complex PTSD.
Absolutely.
And, we'd be able to put that on. I don't know if he doesn't strike me as the type who would bill through insurance. I'm pretty sure he's paying us out of pocket.
Yeah. No, he gave me these new giant laser guns, so he didn't want to pay me in money or anything.
All right, so what do we think about treatment? $1 million unit question.
Oh my God. He's not going to come willingly. That's the hardest part. I think that we're just going to have to earn his trust over time. I think we're going to have to. This is going to be a lot of like old school, going to, I don't know, the schools, or going to their homes and just kind of going for walks and hanging out. And so, no BS. A lot of humor, a lot of just talking crap, and he's going to be testing us constantly to see if we're real, to see if we really believe what we say, and will actually do what we say. And consistency without pity. We can't pity him in any way. We can't make him feel like, poor guy. And then eventually he's going to let us in. It's going to take time. And starting off with the trauma focused therapy, his origins of pain, the shame, reclaiming his own narrative, but that's going to be again through talk, through tinkering, playing around with things. A lot of, or at least parts of IFS type stuff. I know he doesn't have family per se, but he does have people that are like family, and seeing how the systems work and how he is the protector, and sometimes he's a child, and he's definitely the inventor. He's definitely a multitude of things, and how they're all inside of him. I don't do EMDR, but I think EMDR might work for him. Again,
yeah, I agree with that. Actually,
it's kind of a magic pill at this point. I don't know much about it, but people swear by it. So I'm just gonna say, and I know somebody that does it, and she says it's the best thing she's ever done. So that would probably work with him. And it's technical too, so maybe he'll respond better to it. Maybe some somatic work. But that one's going to be hard. That's going to be through gadgets, metalworking, building, processing. Maybe some combat stuff to release, just like some physical activity. And we're still talking, we're still BSing, we're still joking. I'm still making fun of him because I can tower over him as he probably drops me. Yeah, I don't know. And maybe some relational repair. Non-controlling, just giving him space to explore the pain that comes with all his friends getting killed because he thinks it's because of him. Validate his rage, because I mean, dude, he deserves it. He's gone through a lot. Ultimately trying to restore his identity, because he's all these, sorry guys that you can't see me, but I'm beautiful minding with my hands in the air here.
It's really something to behold, actually.
He's all these different pieces, and just putting them all together in the right places. And I would kind of talk to him about how it's like a weapon man. You could sit down and pick up a bunch of scraps and build a cannon. But your brain, your mind is doing the same thing. It's all there. All the pieces are there. We just need to put them together. And I just need to be direct, steady, respect his own defense mechanisms, not try to be overly pushy, and just let him flow however he flows. Long term, hopefully build a really, really good relationship with him so that he can use that as the butterfly effect to create other relationships in his life. Let go of a lot of the self-hate that he runs with, man. And then I don't know, keep building on his resilience, I guess. Although he has it in droves. But we need to change the meaning of it so it's all encompassing, versus only when he is aggressive and feels like he's in control. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Changing not the behavior, but the intent behind the behavior.
Yes, literally that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you thinking, man?
Yeah, I agree with that. No question to what you were saying, that it's going to be all about just slow, gradual rapport building for a long time in the beginning. And that's very normal when you have complex trauma survivors that you're working with, and that's how it should be. I would probably, it's funny you mentioned, kind of field sessions. That is probably an approach I might explore with him, is connecting with him via telehealth if he's away on a mission. Just checking in with him from the bridge of the ship, or potentially cruising out to catch him in between my other clients. If he's got if he's got a window of downtime at nowhere, if he's passing through for a fuel stop.
Oh, it's gone like now, that. Man. Thanos destroyed nowhere.
I guess that's right. But
yeah, he messed that up.
They brought it back in Volume 3.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So right. It would be the new nowhere.
The new nowhere, yeah. We'll go there and scrap. See if we can steal something.
So, but I think that's a good call, to help meet him where he's at. Probably do some sessions outside the therapy office, being able, even if we're just shooting the breeze and, talking about about his latest bounty mission or whatnot, being able to have that early connection in an environment that he's familiar with is going to help to probably ease any suspicions or necessity that he has to be more on his guard when talking with us. Aside from that, say we do get far enough that we're able to start doing some more trauma work. I'm not going to say, usually I love and always go to the psychoeducation aspect of trauma, but I don't think that would actually be needed for him. He's smart. He knows a lot of the stuff he probably knows, and anything he doesn't know, he wouldn't need me to break down for him in great depth before he's able to grasp the concepts. It's going to be more about him feeling comfortable enough to bring them up and talk about them in his own right.
I agree. I totally agree. I'm also going to add that I think with his character and his trauma, it's going to feel belittling. He's going to feel like I'm treating him like he's stupid. Like I'm talking to him like a baby, that he doesn't know anything. And that's just going to turn him off. And it just needs to be a pure conversation. Like he's just my buddy, and we're just going to figure this out. And I'm here for him. And like you said, we're building a relationship. We're going to show him that you can build a relationship with a stranger, and you can build a relationship with anybody. It's not just your group that kind of trauma bonded in your own way, but this can extend everywhere else, and you can still have your autonomy. You can still have your strength. That doesn't matter. Yeah, no, I agree. Good. That's a good route.
Yeah, trust through demonstration rather than explanation.
For sure. Yes.
And I think too, the if we were able to start to go to more vulnerable places in the long term, doing some grief work, since that is, I think, so intrinsically linked to a lot of his trauma. I'd ask him if, was he ever able to, hold a private funeral for his friends, or is there a memorial for them? Does he actively have practices in his, day to day that is his way of honoring their memory, even if it's as simple as just, having a special place or for the key he used to break them all out, or occasionally, or making a device that he names after one of them, or just anything, something that is going to be speaking his language and speaking to his own strengths and behaviors and ways of processing and expressing his feelings, but that ties it back to that to hopefully give some closure or new purpose if it turns out that's something he feels is lacking.
Yeah, I laugh because as soon as you said that, my selfish mind said, "Oh man, I got to talk him into having a scavenger funeral." Even if there's no bodies, let's do it, man. Let's honor them and let's float them out with all the fireworks and the whole shebang. Only because I want to see it. I want to see what it looks like. I think that would be so cool.
That would be something. Knowing Rocket, there'll be fireworks. Whatever else the funeral involves,
some sort of explosion.
Fireworks. There's going to be some. It's not a funeral if it's not something going boom.
And we got to talk him up, man. We got to get him to do so much better than the Scavengers did, that it just turns into this incredible light show.
Right?
Yeah, it's funny because I you said that, and my brain automatically said, "Oh, that'd be cool if he did a scavenger," And then I started talking to myself, thinking, "Dude, you're this is not about you. Don't be selfish. I know you want to see that, but oh well." I mean, hey, look, if he's going to do it, I'm in. I'll go to that.
Never say never. I mean, I don't want to make assumptions, but it doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility for someone like Rocket to relate.
I agree. Or he might be like, no, it's done. It's done. I don't need to. I honor them in my own way, and obviously he's not going to say it like that, but that'll be the sentiment.
this is going into movie trope territory, but but it's perfectly possible that it could be both. I could easily see him saying to us, no, I don't need that. I've made my peace with it. Stop talking about this.
Right.
But then on his own time outside of session, having that funeral that we just described, he would never admit to it, never tell us that he went and did that. But I could see him. He's this type who would not turn down a good idea when it's there, even if he, not in a million years is ever going to acknowledge that to the person who suggested it.
Well, Ben, if I hope I built enough rapport with him for him to invite me. I got to see that. Come on, I'm still being selfish. I still want to go.
You won't have to be invited to be able to see it with his fireworks. I mean, half the universe is going to know it happened.
What do they call Earth again?
Terra.
Terra's way too far. We won't be able to see it. But yeah, no, I mean, dude. Well, shoot, if we could see it, that'd be terrifying.
We'll see it, on an incredible time delay because of all the light years that it'll take for it to travel to us.
We'll be gone by then.
We'll see it in our retirement years. We'll suddenly look up and say, "Hey, he finally did it.
He did it." And he still did. 90-year-old man. He still didn't invite me.
What did I put all this time in my career for?
Exactly.
Well, Daniel, it's been a pleasure as always, and our first MCU client, but hopefully not our last. We're going to be diving into a lot more, I think, in the episodes to come.
I totally agree, and maybe I can talk you into flip-flopping a little bit, and we'll do 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 and all the way through. We'll see.
Heck yeah!
I'm talking about a little DC and maybe even some other people too. We'll see. There's so much out there.